Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to Eons of Battle. Games Workshop nuked my Space Marine army. Out of absolutely nowhere, Games Workshop has now discontinued a whole bunch of the old Space Marines, and we all knew this was coming for the last 6 years now that the primaries exist. We knew that the older Space Marine kits were gonna go away. The thing that leaves a bad taste in my mouth for what's going on right now is they're doing this right in between the launch of 10th edition and the Index Space Marine and the Space Marine Codex coming out. Weird timing, because you know, when we were waiting for the Index, I knew some stuff wasn't gonna make it over. When I was reading the Index, it's like, okay, the 30K stuff is out now and the Venerable Dreadnought's gone, you just take a normal Dread. That's fine, I can make that work. I've already written my lists, I've got my models, everything is pretty good. But now, I bought some of these units very recently, and it is a little feel bad that some of these are going away. Most of these I don't think are that big a deal, and you know, it's been 6 years, and I think from this moment, we have probably another 3 to 6 years with these units where they have pretty darn current rules. It's not that big a deal, but it is annoying that Games Workshop did this right now. They probably should have done it when the indexes first dropped so that we didn't think, oh, all of these things are safe, because that's exactly what I thought. Some things didn't make it over, some things did. All of these things are safe, but nope. Like a couple of months or a month and a half later, Games Workshop says all of these models are now discontinued. So I just want to go through these units and talk about why I love some of them, why I don't really care about some of them, why some of them are actually gonna be a real hurt to lose in the Space Marine Codex, and my plans going forward. But first, did you happen to notice this awesome hoodie I'm wearing? It is called Bourbon Voyage. Get it? Because Bon Voyage, but bourbon. This awesome hoodie is from today's sponsor, Into the AM. Into the AM makes premium apparel with really great artwork and for a great price. They made this shirt that I'm wearing, and they also made this one, Death Waiting, which is really fun. It's like just a kaleidoscope with a skull in the middle of it. I really like it. And tons more. All these bright, stunning arts are printed onto soft poly cotton shirts and hoodies. The shirts are really nice, and the hoodies are really good. They have real pockets like on the sides of them. They don't have just that one belly pocket where it looks like you're giving birth to an iPhone. They're really comfy. The artists and creators over at Into the AM are absolutely crushing it with some new designs. I have my eyes on the Abyss hoodie. If you want to check out the tees for yourself, you can use our link in the description below for 10% off these premium made tees. These shirts are the nerd swag you didn't know you needed. I saw these all over Adepticon, so you know they're Wargamer approved. Now, the things that immediately jumped out to me that I was very sad to see go was Attack Bike and Bike Squad. To be fair, some of the oldest models Games Workshop makes. They're ancient and they don't look that amazing. If you've ever built these kits, they are very old, tons and tons of awful mold lines, don't really fit together very well on the really old, obnoxious, like tall pill-shaped bases. They're really awkward, but I love them. I have them in my army. I've been playing with them for years. I am gonna continue to play with them because they have some pretty excellent rules in the index where you can turn them into a pretty darn cheap, like 75 point attack bike with multi-melta and 3 bikes with gravity guns. Really nice little charge them around and take out some things that are a little bit harder for the Space Marines to deal with. And they're cheap. That's the most important thing, is that they're cheap. List building for 10th edition is kind of a challenge because you don't pay for upgrades anymore. And so everything is just a little bit pricier. And so at 1,000 points, it's really hard to balance what actually goes into your list. And some of these old models were there to my rescue. They were my saviors. I was able to swap in some smaller squads of like Devastators or Tactical Marines and make it all work. So the Attack Bike and Bike Squad, I get why they're leaving because they are so old, and we now have the Invader ATV and the Primaris Outriders, which are lovely models. Maybe not the ATV so much, but the Outriders are phenomenal, although they are very expensive in the actual game. One model that I thoroughly expected to see leave years ago, I'm surprised they lasted this long, was the Scout Bike Squad. These guys, I've never seen them. I have never seen them on Facebook or Daka or Instagram or Pinterest. I've never seen them out in the wild. I've never heard anybody ever talk about them. They've always just been there in the corner in the very bottom of the Games Workshop web store. They're an interesting unit. They used to have some synergies with some other units, but man, are they an old unit. I have heard some people use them as proxies if they want to do like an Adeptus Arbites army, kind of bringing back some of that old Rogue Trader and 2nd edition style armies. I think that's a really good use for them as proxy models for something completely separate. But yeah, Scout Bike Squad, you're gone. Now, the Landspeeder, only the regular Landspeeder, the cheapest Landspeeder, seems, I don't know if that means that all Landspeeders are dead, like the Landspeeder Storm, the Landspeeder Typhoon. Some units like the Dark Angel, or some armies like the Dark Angels have their own type of Landspeeder. So it's interesting to see them gone. It's a little bit surprising. Not the worst looking kit. It's not my personal cup of tea, but it doesn't look out of place next to the current Primaris line and the current line of Space Marines, especially with all of their floaty stuff. I guess because they got replaced by the Primaris Landspeeder, but kind of an interesting unit. The Landspeeder Storm, on the other hand, the Scout version, probably the best looking version of the Landspeeder, and it's really fun to have all of the scouts peeking their heads out and looking and shooting outside of the vehicle itself. But another unit that I never ever see, because scouts are usually okay in Space Marine armies. They're usually very cheap, good for holding objectives like home field objectives or camping. Decent enough unit, but the Landspeeder, I actually did take it in one game of Warhammer 40,000. I proxied it as a normal Landspeeder. It did some work, but overall, not overly sad to see that guy go. The Stalker Hunter is actually not that old a kit. I want to say like 2016 or 17 is when that came out. I remember it I remember seeing it in like a White Dwarf. It's never really found a great place in Warhammer because it's of anti-air guns. Flyers in general in Warhammer 40,000 have always been a little bit problematic and not fit in amazingly, because in reality, like aircraft in warfare are miles and miles and miles above the ground, and they zip over the battlefield in a split second. But in Warhammer 40,000, they kind of hover around like helicopters, moving from place to place, and they've always had awkward, like, you're allowed a 90-degree pivot and then you need to complete your full movement, but your base is the size of a croissant, and so you can't actually fit in between the terrain, so you have to like make little piles of dice so you can put your base on top of the terrain. It's always been very awkward, and the fact that flyers were really good when they first got released meant that they needed anti-air unique units to deal with them, and so it all of a sudden becomes an almost secondary form of playing the game Warhammer 40,000, where, you know, there's Warhammer 40,000 and there's Warhammer 40,000 with flyers. It's always been a little bit awkward, so Stalker Hunter, goodbye. The Ironclad Dreadnought is a little bit sad to see go. Not the huge deal, because the regular box knot is still available in the Codex, so you just take your Ironclad and you just call it a regular Dreadnought and you're ready to go. Assault Squad almost certainly is going to be replaced by their Primaris Assault Squad Assault Squad, which is going to look amazing, and I am super excited for it. I am a Black Templar player, and so I love close combat, and so having an actual Primaris, a real Primaris, a close combat unit, not just Assault Intercessors, which aren't quite as good as my Primaris Crusader Squad, good old Black Templar. But yeah, Assault Squad is not a big deal, and the Scouts leaving is good riddance. Those models are, I have so many of them, but those models are rough. Not even arguably, they look worse than the old metal ones. The old metal ones, they're still kind of weird proportions and got some chunkiness going on, but the poses are actually really good. The plastic Scouts are weird little football players who for some reason all have the same head. Like, Games Workshop's never really done that before or since, where every single model has the exact same head with the same hair, like Lego man style hairdo. They're really awkward, and I really hope they get replaced by some beautiful Primaris Scouts, because I play Black Templar Crusader Squad. It's nice to have a grab bag of different Space Marines with different options so that I can swap them in and out between my games. Very excited for some new Scouts, and hopefully they make a Scout kit that includes the camo cloaks and the sniper rifles all together so that you don't have to buy separate boxes to get the different units, because Sniper Scouts are actually pretty darn solid as a unit. So Primaris Scouts, really looking forward to that. The Company Command Squad, I've run it a few times in game. It is a very interesting unit, typically a very expensive unit and hard to use really well. So I'm not really surprised to see that go. It seems like Games Workshop's kind of doing away with the conglomeration type units where there's a few different types of thing in the same squad. It does get a little bit awkward, and it means like when you're taking damage, you have to roll all the dice individually because you've got different toughness profiles and different things going on in the squad. So the Company Command Squad getting squatted, if you will, probably not going to return like the Leagues of Votann did. That's probably fine. Regular Librarian is kind of annoying to see go because certainly they're not getting rid of like Devastator squads or tactical squads. Presumably, now that they dropped this on us, who knows what's going on for the future, but they're not getting rid of regular Space Marine Captain and regular Space Marine Lieutenant, so you still have some things to take with a squad of Tactical Marines or Devastator Marines. I don't think anything can go with Devastator Marines, but tac squads can use a little boost from something like a Librarian or something like a Captain, and so it's weird to see regular Librarian disappear. Not that old a model, pretty darn good looking model, kind of awkward, kind of weird. I don't get why that one's leaving. Tech Marine with Servitor, not that big a deal. The new Primaris one looks absolutely amazing, and the Iron Hands unique Primaris character, Iron Father Pharaohs, is also an absolutely gorgeous model, and I could see tons of people just taking that model as their regular Tech Marine. Absolutely gorgeous. They should make a squad of Servitors, either have them, well, they didn't make them come with the Tech Marine, so I guess you have to make them their own separate unit. But Servitors have always been an interesting little unit in Space Marine armies. A fun little include that's not very points, that's very points efficient, and you can take some interesting stuff like heavy bolters or plasma guns, or plasma blasters, plasma cannons. So I really hope that they make some more Servitors. And the Thunderfire Cannon. The Thunderfire Cannon is old. I have a fine cast one. I've seen a few metal ones kicking around. It's a very old unit and a very cheap option for some Space Marine indirect fire. Not amazing indirect fire, but it could do some work. I've had a Thunderfire Cannon in my army for years and years. It always performed decently. It always made its points back and gave me some good options in gameplay. So the Thunderfire Cannon leaving is probably the most interesting one leaving because it's not gonna have any direct replacement. I really hope that the direct replacement isn't the Hammerfall Bunker because that thing is poopy. It's fine. It really feels like one of those units that's like one of those faction-specific terrains that Games Workshop makes for a couple years and then discontinues forever. Games Workshop has never actually incorporated that into like any novels or stories. It doesn't have any real lore behind it, and it doesn't actually have any artwork whatsoever in the world of Warhammer, which is kind of unheard of, and goes along with some of the other faction-specific terrain that also doesn't have lore or artwork. It's just a thing they make. So hopefully the Hammerfall Bunker isn't the replacement for the Thunderfire Cannon, and they fulfill very different roles, and once again, the Hammerfall is much more expensive. And that's the thing I'm really not looking forward to with some of the older models leaving the range is it's just gonna be harder to make Space Marine lists because Primaris stuff are so absolutely covered in guns that it becomes a little bit obnoxious to actually fit them into smaller points lists or really any lists in general. I really like in 10th edition Twin Linked coming back. I really wish it was like it used to be where it was Twin Linked to hit and not Twin Linked to wound. That seems a little bit awkward, but it was interesting in 8th edition when all of a sudden everything that was Twin Linked was now just 2 of whatever gun it was because you had all of a sudden so much more maximum damage output for every single unit. But it did make the game a lot more killy and a lot more swingy because all of a sudden you could get 12 hits. Probably not, but you had the opportunity. Now you can only get 6 hits, but those 6 hits are much more consistent. You're probably gonna get 4. So I do like Twin Linking coming back in a sense. 10th edition has been a lot of fun. Man, is it really awkward that all of these things are leaving right now. I have an attack bike right now on my painting desk, halfway done, and I'm gonna finish it, and it's gonna look glorious, and I'm gonna get it in some games. Once again, as of right now, I think we got 3 solid years of playing with all of these units, and then maybe we can stretch that out to 6 because the rules have been written now with the indexes in mind. So pretty darn current rules. They work okay in game, but going on from there, they're gonna be pretty darn irrelevant. And the reason why it's an okay thing to happen is because the Space Marine Codex is absolutely an absolute monstrosity. I mean, compared to things like the Votann or the Dark Eldar, where their codex is this small and there's barely any units, And so you can almost predict exactly what they're gonna take in game, whereas Space Marines can take any different type of army. And there's just way too many units. It kind of makes me think of the way back when Primaris first launched, and the community was split, not even right down the middle. Most people didn't like the idea that Primaris were sort of side by side the classic Space Marines. It is kind of awkward. I've grown to accept it because a lot of the novels are really good, where you have classic Space Marines interacting with Primaris Space Marines, and you kind of get a little bit more conflict within the Space Marines. Because how many times can you have the story just be, oh my goodness, we're the Space Marines and we're all gonna die because we're up against an impossible challenge. Oh, we won. Like, that was most Space Marine novels, but now you got a little bit of more interplay with conflict, and interpersonal conflict is a good thing in storytelling. Now they just need to introduce female Space Marines so that we can have a little bit of romance. These models going away. It's a little bit sad. Most of them I don't really care about, even the ones that are in my army. I need to continue to play with these models and have fun with them for years and years. But yeah, we all knew that the classic Space Marine kit's days were numbered. I just really didn't think that they would do it right in the middle of the indexes and waiting for the codex. Like, it would have been an easier pill to swallow if they waited for the codex and said, okay, now that the codex is out, we're getting rid of these certain units. Because right in the middle is really awkward. I know a bunch of people who bought some of these kits thinking they were safe with the indexes, and it is a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth that it is happening right now. The only one I'm really sad about is the bikes. The bikes are cool. They're really old and clunky. But man, they were pretty good in game for the entirety of Warhammer 40,000. The Ironclad Dreadnought is probably something I should have in my army. It's never been an amazing unit, but it does have the Hurricane Bolter strapped to the side, and the Black Templar kind of came up with the Hurricane Bolter, so it should be something in my collection. Maybe I can snag one on eBay just for the shelf, because I have like a collection of 20 Dreadnoughts, and so I just need to have one of every single thing. Good old Space Marines. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Games Workshop nuking a whole bunch of the old Space Marines. Although I don't know what to expect now, I can assume that everything that's not on this list is reasonably safe. You know, Devastator squads, Tactical squads, Rhino, Razorback, Predator. I guess we can assume that those things are safe for the time being. I don't know if they're safe to buy and add to your army, but if you already have them, I don't think that you should necessarily worry about them going away, but who knows? Games Workshop moves in very mysterious ways. And speaking of things that don't move in mysterious ways, our Patreon. Over there every single month without fail, we have a brand new set of terrain. This month we have the Alien Hive Colony, an absolute table full of amazing Tyranidy-ish type terrain. We also make one extra episode of Eons of Battle every single week where we take a look at our viewers' miniatures and give some ideas and critiques of how to improve their painting. We host live Discord hangouts, and we stream twice a week over on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Central Time. Good old Games Workshop. Long live the old Space Marines. Let's all raise our paint water and just pour a little out for all of these Space Marines going to Legends. They served the Emperor diligently. They have now been replaced by the Primaris Space Marines, but they did their job. They're still in people's collections, and they're still very fun models. Thanks for watching.